Tobe Hooper wanted to call this movie Space Vampires. I think we should we should call it Space Vampires.
You know, it's a good title. It's only a problem if you don't want people to know that they're space vampires. Because I didn't know going into it that there were space vampires. So I'm not sure if you want to tell people that or not.
Yeah. Well, that's the paradox, because you want a little bit of mystery of...
Yeah, because I went into this movie completely blind. I knew it was some sort of space set movie.
Oh, that's the best part to do it.
I knew there was a mysterious nude woman.
Yeah.
That's about all I really knew.
As kids, we talked about the Naked Vampire Lady movie. That's how we refer to it. I didn't know the name of the movie. The Naked Vampire movie that comes down the stairs.
So today we're going to talk the Naked Vampire movie, a.k.a. the Space Vampires, a.k.a. Lifeforce. Welcome back to the show. I'm one of your hosts, Kyle Goethe from GoatFilmReviews.com.
Hi, I'm Nick from the St. Paul Filmcast. Thanks for finding us. Thanks for watching. And for our loyal fans, thank you for continuing to support the show. You can also support the show by doing the Patreon. You get our exclusive reviews and also get to pick the movies that we talk about on the show as well. Yeah. Both Kyle and I are members of the Minnesota Film Critics Alliance. Check out the webpage for critics' reviews as well as ours. And today we're going to talk about Tobe Hooper's movie he made after Poltergeist. It's Lifeforce.
Yeah. The crew of the Space Shuttle Churchill, on a mission to study Halley's Comet, find a gargantuan spacecraft hidden in the coma.
Looks like a sprout.
Yeah.
Right.
On board the ship are dozens of dead bat-like creatures and 3 humanoids in suspended animation. When the bodies arrive on Earth, the female awakens and begins consuming the life forces of anyone in her path. Now, military agents must partner with Churchill's survivor to stop her.
So let's talk about what I know Kyle wanted to get out right away. It's written by Colin Wilson. He wrote the book Space Vampires, which is the...
I gotta read this book, too.
Did you read the book, too?
I have to read it. I've got to find it.
Now I gotta read the book, right. But also, they got Dan O'Bannon.
Yeah, which this movie almost feels like he was potentially thinking of a sequel to Aliens originally. You know, where he's like, let's just bring the alien to Earth, and they're like, oh, you can't do that. You don't have the rights. All right, we'll just do a naked vampire.
Naked vampire, right. But I do like the beginning. It very feels like Alien, like 2001 or something like that.
Could have that same typecast in the credits.
Sets are nice. I like the sets. Right. And then also you have another Don Jacoby who came in to do some rewrites. Cinematographer, it's very interesting to find out, is Alan Hume, who also did Return of the Jedi. He did some James Bond movies, Octopussy, A View to Kill, and he also got his start with doing a horror movie, The Legend of Horror House. Art direction, we have to mention, that's why I think it really works, is Bob Cartwright. Very aesthetic, very bluish. I mean, the cover gets it right. Very bluish, very grayish, very foreboding. Apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Well, 80s, we like that.
And for those of you available, like, get this 4K that Scream Factory did. It's fantastic. Got both cuts of the movie.
I want to take it home.
Amazing. Yeah.
I'm going to take it home.
I haven't watched the other cut yet. You're not doing it, no.
Right. There's 2 cuts. So there's the Tobe Hooper cut.
Yeah. So his original cut was 2 hours and 8 minutes. That was edited down to about 116 for the what's called the international cut of the film, and then further edited down to 101. So there's 15 minutes longer. Apparently it's just as you would expect. The U.S. version cuts down on the eroticism and the gore, because apparently that's too much for us. But across the sea, you can watch all of it in its bloody glory.
Now, the interesting point is a lot of famous British stars in this movie. You have Frankie Finney, who's got the tie, the hair, he's just got the great lines. You have the Peter Firth, who's another catching it. You recognize him. He's got the white hair, the blondish hair. But you also recognize Patrick Stewart's in this movie for a couple seconds. He actually has hair.
Patrick Stewart's first on-screen kiss, and he shares it with Steve Railsback. There you go. And it's also maybe Patrick Stewart's first time in a wheelchair on film, so it's kind of Professor X origins.
We always just recognize him. We won't recognize him standing. He has to be sitting down, like with Star Trek and then in Professor X. But yeah, he has hair.
Yeah, a little bit.
I don't think originally they did not name her, but it's Matilda May. She's from France. She couldn't speak a lick of English. That's why she doesn't say anything in the movie. But she does a lot of things with her eyes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's also one of the reasons that most of the people who have accents in the film actually speak without the accents, is so that she could phonetically read what they were saying and understand it. Because apparently, I think it was Frank Finley said, like, he basically had to reduce his accent so he could speak in a full just English accent, so she could see the way his lips move and respond to him. That way they could get all like the auto dubbing after the fact.
Makeup and special effects department had over 40 people, and you realize when they did the props of the bodies, and the mechanics, and all that stuff. Not to mention the sets for the space and the suits and everything.
This is a big movie for Canon. This is huge because Canon had been known for their low budget fare. That's one of the reasons why they wanted to showcase this film's higher octave by giving it Lifeforce instead of the space vampires, is they didn't want to associate it with some of their cheaper low budget fare. This was this movie, and then leading into what was going to be Superman 4. Like, they were really trying to up their ante, and unfortunately a lot of these movies ended up taking what little money Canon had left.
It's a good point to talk about the background, because this is Canon Films trying to move up to the seriousness of being regarded as legit. Canon Films regard it as low budget films, but spend a lot of promotion.
Yep.
And they want to do the same with this movie, but give it a bigger budget. This is one of the most bigger budget movies they would have.
It's one of their top 3. Yeah.
85 will also be the signature line of, I would say 82, 85 was their golden years. And this is the end of their golden years with this movie.
Yeah, there's a really great documentary, if you're interested in Canon Films, that they released on set with a bunch of their movies, and it breaks down all of like the Canon ups and many of the Canon downs.
They were completely risk takers. They would all in with not showing very many hands. You know, for Texas Hold'em, when one card showed, they would throw all in.
What is it? The lights that burn twice as bright burn half as long.
So they're complete gamblers, and sometimes it paid off, and sometimes it did not go well.
Yeah.
But yeah, 85 is definitely the marker for their cutoff for their golden years. Also, bad timing is because this movie came out at the same time as Cocoon.
Yeah.
And people want a nice soft moment about aliens and youth and rigidity, and this come out with bad aliens.
This one is, don't you look at her.
Yeah.
She'll kill you.
So this is kind of what happened, like the movie The Thing, where that came out at the same time as E.T., and people want the gooey aliens, and then like Cocoon and all that.
And I also think film is a world of what have you done for me lately, and it's if you make a great movie, people can't wait to see what you make next. If you make a bad movie, people can't wait to see you next. But they also put you in genre holes, and I wonder if the family horror of Poltergeist might have affected people's viewership of this movie. Because Tobe had come off of what is generally perceived as, it's a horror movie, Poltergeist, but it's one that the family can watch. I know people that don't let their kids watch horror movies that watch Poltergeist, So I wonder if that maybe might have had an effect on how this film is perceived, because it is very much not Poltergeist. I think the reason it's not played on TV very often, I always wonder why I didn't catch this on like Sci-Fi Channel. Well, it's because there's nudity in 90% of the movie.
Yeah, I remember they have it on, when they put it on TV movie, it would be like late at night, and it was just blur.
Would they blur her? I wasn't sure if they would blur or if they would do one of those letterbox zooms.
No, it was massive, fuzzy. Like just there's a head, right?
Yeah.
Right. So it's very hard. It's the presentation. What would you sell this to? Because in the 80s, what we're doing is we're mixing genres. This is another staple. We're mixing genres, sci-fi and horror, sci-fi and horror. And how would you sell that? Sci-fi fans would like it.
I almost feel like you needed to sell this on the heels of Terminator, because that was our sci-fi horror movie that did the exact opposite of what it was expected. It was expected to tank horribly. That was a year earlier. Yeah, so I think you could have sold it on that lines. That's also a film though where when you put that one on TV, you just got to cut a little bit of Arnold Butt and a little bit of Lyndall Hamilton nudity, and then you can put that on TV. So that's why I think this movie has flown, I would say, the most under the radar of Tobe Hooper's solid films.
Right. I don't think if you were a kid from the 80s, you'll recognize what was the staple, what we all retained from it.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of people don't remember it or don't know of it.
Yeah.
Of this movie.
I've searched for it for 20 years. And now I watched it today.
But we'll get to we'll talk about it with our review a little bit, but the background is it's sunk canon. And it's not Canon's Canon's complete fault. It's not Tobe Hooper's complete fault. It's just also bad timing.
Well, and you look at this, movie making, you can make the best movie in the world, but half of your movie making is pretty much luck. It's when you can place the film, and you can't hold movies forever because most of these things are done with a expiring cost where you need to make your money back quick. You look at something like New Line Cinema, the house that Freddy Krueger built, or I even argue Lionsgate, the house that Saw built. I don't think Lionsgate would have been as big of a company if not for the Saw franchise.
It was sinking.
Yeah. So you look at a lot of these smaller studios were made into the juggernauts that they are now because of horror, because they took the leap on horror. Canon, this is the kind of movie that should have made Canon a big company. that should have kept them going until the next risk failed. You know?
Right. And then they would use the finances of this to go and do like Masters of the Universe and stuff like that. And then they couldn't recover.
Yeah, it was just this. Like the problem is, it's 3 failures in a row for them. This film, and then Superman 3 or Superman 4, and then like Masters of Universe, all in like a 2 or 3 year block. Yeah. That was gonna hurt you. That was gonna hurt.
On paper, you look like it's gonna be a hit. Hey, you like vampires? You like sci-fi? This is the '80s. Yeah. You got Tobe, you know. Hooper, whatever.
Tobe Hooper, and like he'd been going on a pretty good streak there too, because he had, you know, Texas Chainsaw was really well received. Eaten Alive has a very underground quality to it, but a lot of people dig that movie. There's the Salem's Lot miniseries, which is awesome, and the more I watch it, the more I think it's awesome. And then you get things like The Fun House, you get Poltergeist, you get this film, and then following it up with, I think, a really great sequel in Texas Chainsaw 2. So like he's had a good run during this time period, and I think he peaked in the 80s. I think that was his best time for making movies. So
right, and so you look great on paper.
Yeah,
really. It's like, oh, what the heck happened? So yeah, up next is our review of Lifeforce. It's still a great matinee movie.
It is.
You gotta. I don't think it's you don't watch it at night. You gotta watch it during the day.
Yeah, I'm glad that I was able to cover my windows and watch this thing in darkness.
I recommend
because
matinee.
I watched it at 8:30 in the morning.
Whoa!
I made some breakfast and ate my pancakes.
See Matilda May 8:30 in the morning. You'll wake up.
Wake you up in the morning.
Wake up. All right. So overall, I think what really it's sticky because it doesn't know what it wants to be, but it's a hell of a roller coaster that you're stuck in the entire time, and you're like, well. It's almost like you're being on a roller coaster. Like, I want to go here, but the coaster's like, no, we're going here. Well, then your body's like, I want to go here, and then no, we're going here.
Yep.
So it's a kind of this jerky participation with you watching the movie, but it's still kind of a roller coaster that you know you're getting into.
Yeah. And if you guys have recently been keeping up with my 31 Days of Horror, go to filmreviews.com.
Yes.
If you've been keeping up with it, I recently covered the film Survival of the Dead from George A. Romero, and I talked about how I will forever be mad that studios never gave George Romero the budget he deserved to make the movies he needed. When I watch movies like Lifeforce, I think to myself, damn you, studios, for not giving Tobe Hooper enough money to do anything he wants to do. Because this movie had a budget, Poltergeist had a budget, and they're both phenomenal 1-2 punches. I wish that more of these great horror filmmakers didn't have to scrape and scrimp to make their movies, because when you get a cool budget on a movie, this thing goes for broke the whole movie.
It
just
does
accelerates to the end.
And I think I thought Tobe Hooper wanted an opus. He wanted epic. He wanted to spend some time in space, maybe 30 minutes of the movie, maybe even longer in space, because you got a great production.
I think the international cut does feature more scenes in space.
Yeah. But then you have this second act, which you're trying to find her, and then the third act is Apocalypse Now. You're helicopters.
Yeah, I mean it really goes. I don't want to say off the rails because that means bad. I want to mean like it goes like, whoa, we're going there. Okay, that's quite something. Yeah. It's a little globe-trotting because they're flying from like country to country, location to location, trying to catch this nude woman who should be obvious walking around. And
it's kind of like it was in Insidious where you're astro projecting.
Oh yeah. I kept thinking of like it feels like Rabid by way of Michael Bay almost, where they just were like, here's all the money in the world. And so many of the stories going on about the film were about Cannon basically saying to Tobe, like, you want some more money? Keep going. They went like 5 weeks over their shooting schedule, and Cannon didn't care. They were like, no, keep doing it, man. You're doing great. Like, they were just all in on this movie, and that showcases because it's a big, bombastic, wild, weird, and you know me, I love my gory, goopy monster movies, and there's a lot of gory, goopy monster stuff.
You suck the life force another, and then it completely depletes you. But then you can get
that
back.
Get back up, and you go like you. It's that thing where it's obvious that the first one that like sits up in the chair is an like animatronic puppet thing. I'd take that over a person in a costume any day because that thing looked freaking creepy.
It's awesome.
The bodies in this movie actually were reused for the desiccated dead people in the Mummy remake in 1999. So if you actually watch that movie, and I was like looking up screenshots, those are all the people that like the Mummy sucked them dry. That was some of the bodies that were in this film. So,
my only thing is I don't have a clear cut of. I know their vision. I know what they want to do. You just don't have the clear cut, which is have space, trying to find the girl, apocalypse, simple 3 acts that can maybe 2 hour 30 movie that you have a great opus. but you get it very compact. All of a sudden, you just have a slight, and then cars on fire.
Yeah.
And then you have this sword, which is the most. How would you have? It's the most impractical weapon
somewhere, doesn't it?
It's the most impractical thing of all time, which fits the movie. It fits so well, of course.
What I really appreciate too is that you don't have to do this, but I appreciate that he's doing it. Where these creatures come down and they're taking over, and then the guy goes through and says, "This is where we got our vampire lore from. Is that one of these probably landed 100 years ago, and we created vampires based on that legend." And I'm like, that's a really cool idea. It's adding sci-fi to something that was never about sci-fi. I really like that infusing of elements that's out there. Tobe Hooper said that Canon kept giving him money and kept telling him to do whatever you want. They gave him a copy of the book and the script that was there, and they said, make a movie, which we should all be so lucky about that. Yeah. So he said, decided I was going to make a 70mm Hammer horror film. And as I'm watching it, I'm like, Hammer never had that budget, but I can see the visual comparison. I can see what he's doing is he makes a movie that does kind of look like it was financed by Hammer. And that's really, really powerful stuff.
Right. I think from his perception, that's what he wanted.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm really craving like a 3-hour.
I wanted more. Like, I was sad that the international cut's only 15 minutes longer, because I was like, what? There's no 2.5? There's no 3? There's no mini-series event? Yeah. The two things, I can't even really call them extreme nitpicks, because I don't think that not having in the movie takes away from the experience. Things I wanted more of. I wanted to know more of what happened at the end.
Okay.
Because it's a very much
I thought you were going to say you wanted
finale.
more of Matilda May going downstairs and walking.
I mean, if you had those,
Right.
But I wanted to know, too, I wish we had gotten some sort of, because there's the brain link, I was hoping we'd get scenes of showing how she and her two brothers or male companions ended up in that location, or like how does that operate, this giant 150-mile long ship that apparently was actually an artichoke. That's where they got the ship designed.
I said a sprout, but it's an artichoke. It looks like an artichoke,
yeah, I wish I had gotten more of that, because I really wanted to dive into the mythology. It's the kind of movie I feel like this is one I would love to have seen Tobe Hooper tackle a sequel to or expand upon in some way later on. Because it didn't bother me that they weren't in the movie. It's just good movies are never long enough. And that's what this is. It's a good movie that I just wanted, give me more the whole time.
Because it's a hell of a roller coaster. And
it's a roller coaster ride.
It doesn't let you go. Is Steve Railsback the right choice? Because when I watched it, I was like, could somebody else maybe carry the movie, and that would elevate it a little more.
Yeah.
Something a headliner person at the time.
Steve Railsback reminds me of the spoon I used to make chili. It's wooden. Because he's a little bit like standing in place the whole movie and kind of talking but not really acting. I was confused because I was wondering, I thought he had died the first 5 minutes of the movie, and so I'm like, he's the first person credited. We're about 45 minutes in, he hasn't shown up again.
The transporting, yeah.
Yeah, so I really wish there was someone with a little bit more energy in the lead role. Because he has to connect emotionally with an alien creature, you have the ability to really stretch it.
Because you're supposed to buy in. Of all the people in all the world, this hot woman picks you.
Yeah, I'd have picked Patrick Stewart.
Yeah, why don't you... so it's almost, I'm going through all the people, like, who would be available in the mid-'80s. Maybe, that would...
Yeah.
Something.
Where's Fabio when you need him, Like,
right, something like that. Then I'll be a buy into it. But, right, if you're going to...
The only reason I think about that, though, is because he is up in the ship. He's accessible. Maybe she chose him for that. We're not even saying that Steve Railsback isn't a handsome guy, but it's just he's so wooden, and he doesn't really add a lot of character. But, like, she chose him because he was probably maybe the weakest mentally in order for her to get her tentacles around.
I think it's a good way to convey it, but just make it more clear.
Yeah.
That you're the easiest person I can manipulate. And that's why I want to tease you around here.
That goes back to the I want more of it all, though.
We didn't mention before, but these are not just blood vampires. They're energy vampires.
Yeah, and that's actually where I kind of like the Lifeforce title. I think I'm in the minority. I think
it's
a lot
like
of people want the other
thing,
but
they suck all. It's like electrical.
Like they take years off of you, and it's like that's. Yeah. I like that, man, because again, it's not just vampires.
And we've met people that are energy suckers.
Oh,
just being around them, you're like, oh my god, I'm
a couple of Debbie Downers in my life. this goes back to an argument I made, and people hate that I make this argument, but this is my one defense of the sparkly vampires in Twilight, and that is that not every vampire needs to have the exact same set of rules. I like that she sucks the life force out of you instead of blood. You know, and that's my whole thing is like, I don't care that the vampires sparkle.
Right. John Landis was right. He's like, give me the rules of vampires. And you spit all the rules, and he's like, that's nonsense. Vampires aren't real. Make up your own damn rules.
Yeah, he did say that about it. Yeah. And was that Innocent Blood that he was talking about? Where he's like, I'm just going to make my own rules because that's the beauty of it, you know?
Yeah, and that's the whole point of a movie. Make your own parameters of what the movie is. Yeah. But it is a hell of a roller coaster. It's a lot of fun. And you're like, how does Patrick Stewart, get the blood sucked out of him?
That whole scene where he's like, he just spits it into like this swirling vortex, and man, I am
what's
in love
really
with this
winning. It's really winning is the makeup department, special effects.
Yep. Like I said, I can forgive things in a movie, and I probably am. I'm probably seeing this with rose-tinted glasses, where I'm saying how much I love the movie, and maybe there's issues. But when you show me some really cool monster effects in an '80s movie, you've won me over.
But
you don't need
it's
more.
1984, and people are like, well, it's super gaudy. Guess what we did in the 80s?
Yeah. You said it yourself. The end of subtlety.
It's the end of subtlety. Now we're going gaudy.
Yep. Yeah, and the fact that they had to put shadows on Matilda May's buttocks to ensure not an X rating shows that the age of subtlety is over.
It's over, right?
The age of nude vampires walking around has begun.
So, have you seen Lifeforce? I'm still going to call it what do you want it to? Space vampires.
Yeah. I kind of like Lifeforce too. But yeah, have you seen the film?
Before I catch it, this is my favorite question I always ask. Remake time for this?
No remake.
All right.
Lega-sequel.
Ah, yes.
Because really, like, you have to deal with the fact that it's like you almost had an almost apocalyptic event that was finished in this film. So you get to reference something that happened 30 years ago, but then you have them come back.
Get on your typewriter. Let's go.
Have you seen Lifeforce and join me for a sequel?
We'll go to Catalyst and pitch it.
There you go. Yeah. So let us know your thoughts on the film. And you know what? I'm actually really interested. What's your favorite Tobe Hooper film? I know a lot of people are going to go with one or the other. They're going to go with TCM or Poltergeist, but maybe you have another one. I actually have one that's neither of those. So maybe we'll cover it on a future episode.
Can you do like Toolbox Murders?
Toolbox Murders, Salem's Lot, Invaders from Mars, which is one I think I want to cover later on,
the remake of the original from the 50s.
Yeah, and Spontaneous Combustion. He's done a lot of movies that I actually could see a lot of people picking them, but he's got those two heavyweights too. So let us know your thoughts down below and what's your favorite Tobe Hooper film. And then while you're down there, like and subscribe. They don't cost you anything. Help support this channel. We really appreciate it. And as Nick mentioned before, we got that Patreon link down below. Patreon.com/KyleNickOnFilm. We'd love to have you join the team. And from all of us here at the show, you can find all my film reviews and my 31 Days of Horror still continuing through October on GoatFilmReviews.com.
You can find my show, the St. Paul Filmcast, anywhere you find podcasts, and enjoy the roller coaster.